I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. All right. Happy Monday. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Mondays. You can catch me there on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And you can catch me here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Quick shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. And welcome, guys. Welcome. I want to give a quick shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Let's go ahead and shout out these guys. All right. Thank you so much to everyone who is a Sabby patron. If you are interested in becoming a patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabby, Sabsters, Sabinators, and the ultimate. All of their names are listed here. Thank you guys so much for your support. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And I want to go ahead and shout out new Sabby patrons. We like to call them newbies. Let's give a shout out to Sean Walls, Austin Miller, Stonewall Jackwagon. I love that name. And Ryan Hoffer. Thank you guys so much. It really does go a long way. Go ahead and close that there. So what are we talking about tonight? Let me go ahead and share my thumbnail for you here. Okay. Tonight we are discussing Chris Hedges and Roger Waters' war. Interesting discussion there with Chris Hedges and Roger Waters. They talked about a number of topics, but I do want to focus on the segment where they discuss U.S. intervention and war. I'm also going to discuss a Brazil update, which is huge. If you guys have not been following the election in Brazil, Fee and Pasta will be here later on to talk about that. They have been on the ground covering this election. So I can't wait to get their take on this. And I'm also going to discuss Haiti protest. This is huge. I believe Kevin Pina should be joining us. Just let me double check here. But we'll be discussing that as well. So should be a pretty good time. I'm going to go ahead and give shout outs to people in the chat. What's going on? Shout out to Jay. He says cooking while waiting for Sabby will be food for the body and food for the mind. Interesting. What's going on, Rodrigo? I wish fabric softener could make your clothes as soft as the interview the Vanguard just had with Crystal. Oh, wow. Shout out to See the Change. I agree at Jay Burke. This is one of my top favorite shows. Looking forward to the entire stream, of course, but particularly interested in hearing about the Brazil elections. What's going on? Miguel says peace. Shout out to Brandy, says hello, everyone. Greetings, Hannah G says Sabby Mondays. Shout out to Saul. Hi, Sabby do. Fams is in the house. Greetings, Eric, who's a Sabby member, says a big hello to all my lefty friends. What's going on, Mark? Sabby, did you see the Vanguard Crystal Ball interview? I saw part of it. I didn't finish it. Shout out to Peggy. Happy Monday with Sabby Sabs, everyone. What's going on, Sabby? Sav sends lots of love. Greetings, Zero Joshua, who's a Sabby member, giving you a thumbs up. Go ahead and hit that like button, guys. That helps me out with the algorithm. What's going on? James says, Slava Ukraini, justice for MH17. Shout out to Notori, sends fire and love. Greetings, Farktal? I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Says, what up, dope? Shout out to Creative Experiments. 3 months until market crash. Get ready. I've been hearing about that. Shout out to my comrade JB. Says, I'm here, Sabs. Hello, all. Forehead kisses. Oh, greetings. Where a Pilgrim says, hey, everybody. Shout out to Sweary Fairy, who is a Sabby member, says, happy Monday, fam. I got news. I just got my driver's permit validated today. I literally danced out of the DMV. Well, anytime you're dancing in the DMV, this is good to hear because the DMV is not the most pleasant place to go to. I'm sorry, but it's not. It's just not. Shout out to John G. Says, Brasileiros Lula 13. My Portuguese is not good. I'm sorry. Shout out to Jose, says Sabby. What's going on, Jose? Greetings, Rick, says Rodrigo with a laugh. What's going on, Bad Cookie, says sup, Sabinators. Shout out to, I skipped one, sorry. Larez 121, sup, Sabby, and everyone hit the like. That's right, guys. Helps me out with that algorithm. Shout out to Tortuga. Thank you so much for the super sticker. Welcome, welcome all. So let's go ahead and get started. So I am going to actually I'm going to go ahead and start with the Haiti discussion. I'm not sure where Kevin is, but I'm going to go ahead and start with that anyway. So let's go ahead and start with what is going on in Haiti. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware, but there have been protests in Haiti. They've been going on for a while. The people there are not giving up. Okay. They're really upset. And this is something I wish we could do here in the United States. You know, a lot of us are frustrated with inflation. I wish we could have the crowds that people have in Haiti. So I do want to go ahead and show you this video here. Now, I saw this video on Twitter, and this is from Haiti Info Project, and it says, another shot of massive protest in Haiti's capital today, demanding U.S.-backed government of Ariel Henry resign and a true Haitian government of national unity take charge without foreign interference. So this is just another example of how U.S. intervention has gone incredibly wrong, and the people are tired of it and they've had enough. Take a look at this video here. I want to pause it there for a second because I want to take a look at something. Look at all of the people by the hundreds in the streets. And this protest didn't start yesterday. They've been protesting for weeks and they just continue to do it. They haven't stopped. Look at all the people, you guys. This is something that I wish we would have continued with the George Floyd protests. I wish those protests didn't stop. after Joe Biden won, I wish we would have continued doing that. Like, that's the thing with the protests. You can't just have one protest. I think the civil rights movement taught us that, right? That you need multiple protests, and you need it to happen for quite a while in order for it to be effective. You need to have sit-ins. You need to have boycotts. But what exactly is Ariel Henry's take on the protest? Now, again, he's the one that they're really angry with. Let's go ahead and get into that because this was really interesting. It says, Ariel Henry, to Haitian compatriots, I ask you to calm down. Let's get into this. He has some nerve. The audacity of it all. Now, this is from Dominican Today. So this is Ariel Henry here. And it says, I'm going to make this a little bit larger. It says, Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry spoke Sunday night to insist to his fellow Haitians that they should keep calm in the wake of protest generated by the increase in fuel and petroleum products. Let's go on. Again, he's asking them to keep calm. Henry stated in his speech that Haiti could solve the problems it is suffering by working together. However, he did not retract his decision on the fuel hike. Now, again, why are they protesting? Because of the fuel increase. And he wants them to calm down, but at the same time, he's not changing anything about the fuel increase. I'm sorry. Why should they calm down when you haven't made any changes? Nothing. Let's go on. Faced with the evolution of the situation, I call again for calm. I ask you to calm down. Together, we can solve problems. I understand your frustration. You know, it's always interesting to me when politicians say that they understand working class and poor people's frustrations. Do they? Especially politicians in the US. I mean, most of them, they're making more than us. Financially, they earn more than us. So when they say they understand our frustration, do they really understand our frustration if they're not having those same financial difficulties? Do they really understand our frustration when we fight for Medicare for all if they have a great healthcare plan? No, they really don't understand. They really don't understand. I share the pain of the victims, of those who have lost assets they built for decades. Okay. Now that's coming from him, Prime Minister Henry. According to the head government of the neighboring country, the rise does not justify the action taken by some Haitians and described as irresponsible those who have dedicated themselves to looting businesses, schools, and universities, attacking politicians and members of the Haitian government. So it has gone as far where they are now attacking politicians. They know who's in charge. They're like, you need to do something about this. Improvements in Haiti. In his speech, Ariel Henry explained that the Haitian government is working on projects to improve conditions in the country he leads. They're always working on a project. There's always something in the works that just doesn't seem to happen. There is a project underway at Customs so that the state can better control what enters the country, limit arms and drug trafficking, and increase revenue. These decisions cause discontent. He also assured that his government seeks to expand the social pacification program to help disadvantaged families. Customs, revenues, and funds that were destined to subsidize oil derivatives will allow the government to fly to the aid of the population. In the next budget, we plan to buy seeds and fertilizers for farmers, repair irrigation systems to increase national production, give hot meals to school children, increase community restaurants, implement job creation programs in the 571 communes. So this piece right here about what they plan to do, notice this says in the next budget. When is the next budget? From the looks of it, from what I've seen from the videos, people need help now. They need financial help now. They need food now. Why is it the needs of the people are put on hold? Primarily working class and poor people. And I've said this before, and I'll say this again. I feel like there is no country in this world more demonized and more vilified than Haiti. You have a lot of people suffering, and this has gone on for decades. I'm talking going all the way back to the earthquake that happened in Haiti. I remember that. There just doesn't seem to be as much empathy given towards Haitians in Haiti. Let's go on. So that's that piece there. And again, so that is Ariel Henry. Now, there's something else I want to show you too, because like I said, these protests have been going on for a long time. So I'm going to show you another video here. You can follow this site on Twitter because they have a lot of information about Haiti. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I was hoping that Kevin would be here, but that's okay. I still have my clips here. The site that I want you to follow on Twitter, it's called Haiti Info Project. So if you want to learn more about the history of Haiti, if you want to learn more about the protests that are happening there as well, about the massacre in Haiti, follow this handle on Twitter, Haiti Info Project. So one of the videos I want to show you here, this is the one. Protests continue throughout Haiti today, demanding U.S. in support for Henry government. Uproot them, uproot them. Check out this one. You pause it for a second. Again, look at all of the people out there protesting. And there's more. Now, I'm hoping this one is in English. Hold on. Yeah, unfortunately, some of these you'll need a translator, but check them out. They're doing like great work. Great work. And there's another one I do want to show you as well. Let me come out of here. Stop share. I'm not sure how that happened. There we go. One more video that I want to show you as well. Yeah, this one was 2 weeks ago. This is the one from Al Jazeera. Let me share this. They're pretty good with this kind of stuff, you guys, if you want to see more info about this. Okay, here we go. Listen to this one as well.
Protests turned deadly on Tuesday in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, as crowds took to the street.
Oh, Eric, can you use volume booster for this one? Thanks. Do we use volume booster for this one? Thanks.
Protests turned deadly on Tuesday in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, as crowds took to the streets. Protests turned deadly on Tuesday in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, as crowds took to the streets outraged over rising crime, soaring inflation, and a government hike in the price of fuel. Several people were reported dead by Haitian journalists after clashes with police. People threw stones and burning barricades were set up on the city's streets. The outbreak of violence came after Prime Minister Ariel Henry announced that a severe scarcity of all types of fuel would force the government to raise prices. That would be yet another blow to millions of Haitians struggling to eke out a living day by day. Henry has called for calm and international help in fighting gang violence.
Violence pas la donne.
We have to solve the violence. Violence is not.
Now, I want to just interject here for just a second because he's saying we have to solve the violence. This goes back to the point before what I was talking about with the relation between crime and poverty. Most crime is poverty driven. So why is the violence increasing? Because people are at a despair. People are impoverished right now in Haiti because of the fuel hikes. Now, people were already dealing with these issues before, but it's worse now because of the fuel hikes. That's why the crime has increased.
Not going to get us anywhere. I appeal to all people to stay calm.
By tout monde.
The appeal had little effect. Haitians are living in a country largely without a functioning government where violent criminal gangs control much of the territory. Those gangs have made daily life extremely difficult with robbery, extortion, and brazen daylight kidnappings for ransom. The groups have grown more powerful since the assassination of President Jovenel Moise more than a year ago. On Sunday, journalists Tesson Latier and Franzen Charles were killed while covering a battle between rival gangs in the notorious slum called Cité Soleil. The Haitian Journalists Association called the killings further proof of the inability of the state to protect lives and property.
They said the inability of the state to protect lives and property. Do you see what's happening? When we talk about some type of a revolution or the possibility of that happening in the United States, they're already experiencing that. They're already experiencing that right now in Haiti. The people have risen up. The government, they don't have control of the people anymore. The people have risen up. They're like, no, we are not going to deal with this. We are not going to continue to deal with the poverty. You need to change something for us, or this is what is going to continue to happen. It's terrible. It just... Poverty is violence. Absolutely, JB. Absolutely. JB also says the Haitian people are badass. They kicked their colonizers' ass out of the country. They ended their own enslavement. Much respect and love to our Haitian brethren. Thank you so much, JB. She's black. Henry must be a U.S. government puppet. Rick, projects where everyone asks at the end, where did the money go? Right. That's another good point. And there's something else that's happening. So people are getting sick. People are dying in Haiti right now, also due to the fuel price hikes. Now, I want to go ahead and share this clip here because I think this is incredibly important. Now, this was reported by the Miami Herald. Listen to this. Make this larger for you. Haiti confirms cholera deaths as fuel shortage protests hamper access to clean water. Now, this is cholera. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Cholera. All right. And there's the picture there. Listen to this. After more than 3 years without a single confirmed case of cholera, Haiti is confirming the deaths of at least 8 people from the deadly waterborne disease. The deaths were confirmed by Miami Herald by an official in the government Sunday, just hours after the United Nations confirmed there was an outbreak in the Caribbean nation, where weeks of ongoing civil unrest may have left Haitians vulnerable to a resurgence of the disease. So now they have to worry about disease as well. This is all connected. Preventing the spread of cholera requires hand washing with soap and clean water. But this is increasingly complicated in Haiti, where water is becoming more scarce. On Sunday, as officials confirmed the presence of this disease, the country's leading supplier of potable water, Caribbean Bottling Company, announced that it had run out of diesel and cannot produce or deliver clean drinking water. The shortage is the result of a gang blockade of the country's main fuel terminal, Veru, that is now headed into its 3rd week. So when I tell you that it's all connected, do you see the problem? The bottling company doesn't have enough diesel to produce the water. So now everyone is suffering as a result of this. Well, probably except for those who have money. But you need water to wash your hands. So the fuel price hike is not just affecting people who need gasoline. It's also affecting the bottling company as well, which is producing their water. So it's not sanitary. And that leads to disease. Let's go on. The UN said that the positive case of cholera was confirmed Sunday by the National Public Health Laboratory in Port-au-Prince after the government's cholera surveillance mechanism detected the suspected case. In a separate statement, Haiti's Ministry of Health said the case was discovered in the Sabane Pistache des Côtiers area of Port-au-Prince. Additional suspected cases are currently being investigated in the Brooklyn neighborhood of Cité Soleil. I hope I'm pronouncing these correctly, you guys. Sorry. That's what the ministry said. In July, the sprawling Port-au-Prince slum was the site of deadly shootouts between rival gangs that left at least 470 people dead, injured, or missing over a 9-day period, and countless women the victims of rape. Now, I have a question here. This situation that's happening here with the rival gangs, over 470 people dead, where is the U.S. government outrage for the people who are dying in Haiti? Where's that same outrage that they have for people in Ukraine? Where's that same outrage for the people in Haiti? You don't even hear about it. Are they talking about this? Is Joe Biden and his administration, are members of the squad, are they talking about these protests in Haiti? Are they talking about over 400 people dead? This article came out this morning, but this has been going on for weeks. Where's the sympathy? Where's the empathy? Oh, I forgot, it's Haiti. They don't care about Haitian people. Let's go on. This is important, though. People need to talk about this. The United Nations is actively monitoring the situation and is working with the government to mount an emergency response to this potential outbreak. Focus not only on limiting the spread of the disease, but also on informing the population how to take immediate life-saving action at the household level. Additional support will consist of expanding surveillance, increased water and sanitation provision, the opening of cholera treatment centers, and the reinforcement of case management. Where's the billions of dollars for Haiti? The same way that Joe Biden and Congress can vote on these bills to send billions and more aid to people in Ukraine, where's the billions of dollars sent to people in Haiti right now? Where's the legislation for that? Do you guys see the problem that we have? There's a lot of sympathy and empathy for people that are affected in European countries. But you don't see that same empathy or sympathy or any type of legislation to help people in countries where there's people of color. Where's the bill, the legislation to help people in Haiti? Where's the legislation to help people in Somalia? Where's the billions and billions of aid to help people in Yemen? Weren't they supposed to be working on that? Didn't Pramila Jayapal talk about that? And she said, yes, we need to help the people in Yemen. Where's the legislation, Pramila? They don't care about brown people far away. They don't care about brown people here. So we know. Let's go on. Cholera first appeared in Haiti 12 years ago when an outbreak was confirmed on October 20th, 2010. 10 months after the country's devastating earthquake that left over 300,000 dead. More than 800,000 Haitians became infected and over 10,000 died from the disease. Though introduced by UN peacekeepers from Nepal, the global body for years refused to admit its responsibility or apologize, leaving some of its own independent rights experts to criticize its response and failure to compensate victims. Earlier this year, one of the country's leading health experts, Dr. Jean-William Papé, announced that Haiti had marked 3 years with no confirmed cases and was on the road to be cholera-free. However, taming cholera requires access to proper water and sanitation and a health infrastructure, all of which have been challenging during recent anti-government protests and ongoing fuel shortage that have blocked access to roads, water, and other basic services. So the fuel shortage is at the root of all of this. See how that one piece can affect so many other things. We'll be talking about Haiti a lot more on here. I think it needs to be covered more. And I'm going to try to do that. I really am. I was hoping to have Kevin on tonight to talk more about this too, because he does reporting in Haiti. But we're going to cover this more because people need to know. People need to see. You need to see the difference between this rah, let's support Ukraine, let's wear these t-shirts. The Hollywood actors who come out and tell you to donate the money, and they're donating money to people in Ukraine. Where's that same support for people in Haiti? Pay attention. All right, Saul, the Clintons exploited this terrible disaster to steal billions of dollars from the sick and starving people of Haiti. Yes, Bill Clinton was a part of that. Creative experiments, broke and sick from cholera, keep calm. Exactly. Like, keep calm. People are dying. Where Pilgrim says cholera ain't no joke. No. JB, the racism is miles high. Rick, yeah, no aid for them, just horse reins used as whips. Right? And then you see why migrants were leaving Haiti and coming to the United States. You see why? Look at what they're going through. Look at what they're going through. Glory U.S. aid is in Haiti. Money is spent to deliver food aid to make them more dependent on foreign powers. Plus, the food is strategically withheld from people. Look at Haitians looting U.S. aid rice warehouses. So you guys see that? Shout out to Glory. And I'll take those comments on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip. Hey, oh, dear God. Thank you for the $100 tip. Holy crap. I appreciate that, A-Rim. Doing good work and in good company. Thank you so much. Thank you for the tip, Roger Meadows. Sabs, they need some solar panels, wind turbines, high capacity batteries, and nuclear for the long term. But it must be owned and operated by the government or a partnership with TAWC. Moses West is going to be a very busy man running all over the earth with these machines, giving them water. I think he shows the locals how to repair and maintain the atmospheric water generators so he can set it up. Show them how to keep it going and move on. Sabby, give me a high five and put that link in the chat for Moses West Foundation, will you, so we can donate. Yeah, Eric, if you can put that link in the chat, that would be great. Yes, Moses West is doing great things in reference to giving people clean water, right? Bad cookies. I thought this was a stream, not an OnlyFans, Sabby. You got some big tippers. Yeah, wow. Thank you so much. I was not expecting to see that. I really appreciate that. We're going to go into our next story, and Fee and Pasta will be here a little bit after 8 to talk about the Brazil election. So, but right now we're going to go into our story about Chris Hedges and Roger Waters. So this was an interesting interview. This is on the Real News Network. For those who are not aware, Chris Hedges has a show on the Real News Network called The Chris Hedges Report. He does great interviews on there. Sometimes it's historical interviews. Sometimes it's more about prison reform. He talks about that a lot on there. Also labor. And sometimes he interviews people like Roger Waters. So this particular piece here I want to focus on is more so where they start to talk about U.S. intervention and war. But he did talk to him about other things such as Pink Floyd as well. But let's go ahead and get into that.
But you're the concert is fierce against the forces of...
Oh, can we use volume booster, Eric? Sometimes the video sounds loud on my end, but not on the other end.
Feels a kinship to the human race, a closer kinship to the human race than they do to profit, for instance.
That's good.
Or any one of any number of dogmas in different camps all around the world where people are extreme and have been subverted, if you like, from their potential to be human and to love one another and look after one another.
But the concert is fierce against the forces of oppression. It had a kind of Orwellian quality to it. And when you take those kinds of stances, you make enemies.
Yeah, yes, I do. And I often wonder, how thick the dossier is in the FBI and the CIA, because I bet it's quite thick. And I know from experience that occasionally, I'm talking about the USA now, particularly because I live in the USA, and so I have to have I'm sort of constantly reapplying for an O1 visa, which is my permit to work, my permit to stay, to be resident in the United States. And the last time I went to get it renewed was in the American Embassy in London a few years ago. And I had somebody else who was with me. I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but frankly, I couldn't give a damn, And he's a guy who works for me, and he's worked for me for many years. So I have an O1 visa, which is visas they give to people who are unique in some way. Nobody can do what I do because I'm me. And only I have my body of work. And it applies to actors and musicians and all kinds of people. And then people who work for people like me get O2 visas, which are attached, if you like, to that. Well, we went in together. Chubba, my friend Chubba, who's worked for me for 20 years. And I was 591 and he was 592 on the list, right? So suddenly he got called in, 592, and they gave him his O2 visa, and he was done. And I sat there for another 2.5 hours, even though I was the number before him. So I thought, oh my goodness, they're in a room having a meeting, trying to decide whether to let me back into the United States or not.
Let's pause there and let's discuss for a second. So Roger Waters, obviously, he said he lives in the United States, but he has to have a certain type of visa to work here in the United States and then also to travel back and forth, like abroad, right? So here you have someone from Pink Floyd. They are trying to decide whether or not they even want to give him a visa. Very well known. I mean, I think everyone knows who Roger Waters is, whether you listen to Pink Floyd or not. And they're trying to decide if they want to even let him come back into the country. Now, why is that? Because Roger Waters has been very vocal about war. He's been very vocal about especially this crisis with Russia and Ukraine. We saw that interview with CNN that he had recently. So he's not one to hold back. And not only has he's been vocal about this during interviews, he's also been vocal about this during his concerts. So he's one of those artists that actually expresses his political views during his shows. So I told you guys a while back, he was on a list. So they're trying to decide. They don't even know if they want to let him come back. Interesting.
And they did, and I'm happy that they did. But who knows next time? It's very difficult to know which way they're going to jump. And they must do the sums about, is this to our advantage or not?
Wait, what? JB, sadly, I didn't know who he was until a couple of months ago. I never listened to Pink Floyd. JB, what are we going to do with you? What am I going to do? I'm going to have to give you a music lesson. JB. Oh, dear. Oh, gosh.
And you have to believe that the neocons, the powers that be, who run the United States and completely control all the politicians and the government, and we know that's just a charade. There's really no difference between any of the politicians. Because as we know, government can be purchased in the United States. That's what Citizens United is.
So he just told you that there's no difference in the politicians. Now, he's able to recognize this, and he didn't grow up here. But you have people who grew up in this country that still don't get that. And when you try to tell some of them that, they get upset. Oh, you're just going to let the other side win. Dude, regardless if it's a Republican or a Democrat, do you realize the government is always winning? You get that? The corporations are always winning. We're the ones that lose, regardless who it is. If you're working class, you're losing. If you're poor, you're losing under this two-party system. He gets that, and he didn't even grow up here under American politics. So how is it that we can get someone like him to truly just get it and understand? Maybe because he's coming from UK. But the people who live here under the system don't get it. They don't understand it. But he's letting you know, even when it comes to the politicians per se, they're mainly just puppets. Big money runs all of it. That's why he mentioned Citizens United, which Citizens United has not always been around. So if we could just get more people to wake up to this fact, we don't really control any of it. The politicians that are in DC are puppets or pawns, and big money controls all of it. All of it. This is why I tell you it doesn't matter who is running in that system, that two-party system. You can change the face. You can change the image. They're still all bought and paid for. That's the problem.
Which is only about 10 years old as far as I remember. But you can purchase the election, which is weird that they would call themselves a democracy and yet government is for sale to the highest bidder. So
that's right. The person that has the most money gets what they want. We don't have as much of a choice as we would like to think. They want us to feel like we have a choice. Because if most Americans knew what was really going on and how these decisions are made, people would be livid. A lot of people would probably rise up over that.
What am I trying to say? I don't know. I've sort of run off the rails.
Well,
slightly.
but it's important. So I spoke in Florence. It was at the time a communist government. They invited me to speak to all graduating high school students. There were 10,000 of them in an auditorium. When I came back to Newark, the same experience. I'm a U.S. citizen with a valid U.S. passport. They put me in a room for 2 hours, told me nothing. And then a supervisor came in to somebody behind the computer screen and said, he's on a watch, tell him he can go. And I think that what they did to me is exactly what they did to you. It was intentional, just to let you know that they are watching you.
That's right. So see, they even are looking at Chris Hedges. It's a little bit of a fear tactic. My friend actually went through this. She's not a journalist, but she's a target because she was born in the Dominican Republic and then brought to the United States, and because of who her father was. So every time she travels abroad, she's usually taken aside, brought into that little room, and questioned every time. And she loves to travel, so it's really annoying for her. So they're watching you. They're letting you know we're looking at you.
Yeah, they are. I know that. I've been warned by people. I've been warned by people with connections. Oh, well, it's just that. Wouldn't you rather be Martin Luther King than Malcolm X? You know, if you get too extreme, and I had this conversation, I thought this was in my own home, and I'm not going to mention the name of the guy who came and made this speech to me, but he's an ex-CIA desk. You know, he ran the Middle Eastern desk for the CIA for a number of years. And there he was explaining to me that it's probably much better to be moderate, that you have more impact and effect if you don't get too Malcolm X-y. You know, I thought to myself, well, they killed Malcolm X and Martin Luther King.
That's right.
And then at the end of it, the guy said to me, and it was quite chilling, he said, well, you know, I just wouldn't want to see anything happen to you. And I thought, fuck me, I'm being threatened in my own home.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this for a second. When people make that comparison between MLK and Malcolm X, I want to remind people just what Roger just told you. When it comes to Martin Luther King, yes, he wasn't as radical as Malcolm X, but they still killed him. Martin Luther King said to take a nonviolent approach, even though there was violence inflicted on him and all the other activists during that time. Even though he was beaten, even though he was thrown in jail, even though he was hosed down with water, those powerful water hoses, by the way, those really hurt. Even though he had dogs like sicked on him, his approach was still, we must be nonviolent. We cannot have the violence. So even he was killed. So the way that what Roger Waters is actually saying here is like, well, if you're going to go out, you want to go out as a radical, or do you want to go out as someone who was a little bit more on the moderate side? That's what he's saying. It doesn't matter, like, the method that you choose to use. Using your voice sometimes is just enough for them to come after you.
By an ex-CIA desk manager. Amazing. And I tried not to bat an eye, and I sort of didn't, but I think, well, thank you for your time. And okay. I do bear it in mind sometimes. However, I don't wander around looking over my shoulder.
Well, you didn't pull any punches. I got to hand it to you. You did warn everyone at the beginning that if they don't like, if you're one of those who likes Roger Waters' music, but you don't like his politics, you can F off to the bar. I guess the bar being a place where maybe we can convert them. And
Now the-
I thought at the end of the concert, well, everybody was forewarned, completely forewarned. I'm going to wade into an area that is totally out of my expertise. But when you go back, and I want you to talk a little bit about it, I found it very poignant when you were talking about just your first kind of dreams of creating this iconic group, Pink Floyd, and the very tragic life that finally took your co-founder, Sid. But wouldn't that kind of political radicalism, wasn't that more infused within rock and roll when you began in the 60s? Or am I wrong about that?
I don't know if you're right or wrong, because it's not an area of interest, really.
Oh.
Because the radicalism comes from my mother and my father. So it's very, in fact, you and I may have even conversed about this briefly.
Yeah.
Because I know that a lot of your, not instincts, but a lot of your beliefs and things are attached to the memory of your father and the fact that he stood up so bravely for what he believed in when he was a minister and ran up against the church and blah, and all of that. So I was chairman of the Young Socialists and the youth campaign for nuclear disarmament in Cambridge when I was 15-year-old, So, and that came absolutely from the fact that my mother was a card-carrying communist up until 1956, which was the year when almost everyone in England stopped being a card-carrying communist because the British Communist Party refused to condemn the invasion of Hungary specifically.
I do remember, in reference to rock and roll per se, I do feel like if you listen to, rock music from, I'd say the 60s, especially the 70s, I do feel like it seemed like it was more accepted to be more political. Like there were musicians that spoke out against the Vietnam War in their music. There was a song, I forget who sings the song, but there was a song called War, What Is It Good For? The song that goes, War, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Remember that song? So I felt like that was more common practice back then. Nowadays, you don't hear that as much. There's a lot of focus on pop music and sometimes lyrics that have no real meaning in life. It's just about materialism and buying a lot of things and having a lot of desires. But I feel like the political message back then, I feel like it was a little bit more common than what you see now, right? The last time was someone I do remember in particular. Eminem did speak out against the war in Iraq. I remember that. Oh, no, that was Afghanistan. I think it was Afghanistan. Anyway, he spoke out against one of them. His album, The Eminem Show, he talked about that a lot. He kind of slid it into his songs here and there, or he criticized that. In fact, I think it was more common for rappers to do that during that time, to criticize that. But at the same time, we also had a Republican president, Where's that same critique and focus against war today now that we have a Democrat president? So that's something that I have learned to pay attention to. It's a lot easier to speak out and to appear more radical when you have someone like Trump in office. But do you still have that same type of radical mindset and that voice when you have a Democrat in office who's also a warmonger or committing war? I wouldn't say Trump is a warmonger per se, but when you also have a Democrat in office that is pro-war, and that's like dropping drones on people as well. Are you still that radical person, or is it only when it's a conservative that's in office?
By the Russians. And so that was a huge change that happened with the Communist Party. But my childhood is kind of littered with daily worker bazaars and political meetings in the front room. My attachment to rock and roll was far less worthy. I couldn't see how I could get enough money to buy a sports car and start pulling chicks, to use that parlance, unless I won the football pools or something like that, because I couldn't see how I could really make my way in the world in a way that I want. And rock and roll was sort of the only thing, and it was like winning the lottery or the football pools, because it's so unlikely that you would ever make a shilling out of a garage band. They weren't called garage bands there, but by putting a pop group together. But by some weird quirk of fate, it happened to me, partly because of Sid's great talent earlier on, because he was a writer of some note. I can still remember some of his lyrical work from those days, and not just his lyrics as well. He was something of a visionary in terms of his musical applications as well, though he learned a lot from Love and one or two of the other West Coast American groups. There was precious little going on in England at the time. The music industry, by and large, was run by a lovely man who was called Pons.
Let me move ahead just a little bit here. There we go.
Oh, assault. I mean, Victor Hara was murdered. Mercedes Sosa was exiled. Woody Guthrie was all but internally exiled. And this is what so impressed me about, you just didn't pull any punches at all. I mean, that's what made it, I think, so powerful. And I just want to say that it also it had artistic integrity. It wasn't a polemic. It could have been a polemic, in which case it would have fallen flat.
Yeah. Well, it's a disguised polemic.
Well, that's what all great art is.
Okay. I believe you to be right. You're exactly right. I could name English artists who are very, very earnest and, and convinced and really laudable because of what they do. I can't not mention Billy Bragg, who's a name from from the English past of the thing.
Oh, sorry. I was making sure I'm getting to the right part.
It's like a bully in the schoolyard. You say, you do as we say, or we're going to kick your teeth in. That's American foreign policy. What?
Yeah, that's the part. Hold on.
Pinter talking about American foreign policy.
Yeah, this is in his Nobel Prize speech.
Exactly. It's
brilliant. Brilliant.
What does he say? Yeah, he says American foreign policy is like it's like a bully in the schoolyard. You say, you do as we say, or we're going to kick your teeth in. That's American foreign policy.
Yep.
What? How crude and debilitating and disgusting and old-fashioned. What are you living in the 9th century? What is wrong with you? What's wrong with them, of course, is that they picked up from Irving Kristol and, and those early neocons and something of the new American century, that they could be the unipolar power and that they can rule the world.
Well, we're all in trouble when Henry Kissinger is the voice of reason. Which he is, and you got in a lot of trouble on CNN. I don't know if I watched the whole thing, but you were not saying anything different than Kissinger had said, which is that they should give land for peace, the war has to end, and because whatever you think about Kissinger, and of course I think he's a war criminal, along with all those presidents you listed at your concert, he certainly understands geopolitics. And he understands the danger, and as I think you just laid out, of the Ukraine policy.
That's right.
So that's what we do all day. You do it as well. This is what we do. We the people who represent the we the people, who somewhere understand that we have to figure out a method of collaborating with one another that might, at the end of the day, save this beautiful planet that we all call home. Because they, the powers that be, the neocons, the profit mongers, the war machine, are working as hard as they can to destroy it as fast as they can, including possibly with nuclear war.
That's right. See, this is something to keep in mind here, is that, the top 1% and the military industrial complex, and that includes the weapon contractors as well, they have no problem working together. They have no problem working with people on the other side. Doesn't matter. You think they're sitting back thinking, are you a Republican? Are you a Democrat? No, they see money, they see wealth, they see power. So they can have common interests and work together with those common interests, and all the political jargon can just be pushed aside. They can strip their label and just work together to keep the people suppressed, to keep people at the bottom. Now, I say that because why? Because if they can do that, then why can't working class people and poor people remove their political labels and work together and fight back against the 1%? This is something I'll tell you. At the end of the day, rich people, really, really rich people, when it comes down to money and power, they have no problem working with people who may be a Republican or a Democrat. Look at all the people that were connected to Jeffrey Epstein. You think they all had the same political ideology? No, but they were all rich. People look out for their class. Well, wealthy people look out for their class. Working class people and poor people need to get on board with that.
And I mean, one, I sort of, am I loath to go into this arena? Probably. The evangelical Christian right is I'm sure it's a worry to you as well. The idea of the rapture and how attractive that is, some people, is deeply, deeply distressing, obviously, to anybody who's even thinking about the questions that we're talking about now, because they push us all in the,
Well, it's a kind of yearning for apocalyptic violence. I mean, you look at the End Times series, and I wrote a book on it, American Fascists, the Christian Right and the War in America. I was trying to reach out to them. I want to go back. So
we're going to go ahead and pause here because I see Pasta and Fiorella are here. If you guys are ready, just go ahead and give me a thumbs up. All right. Hello.
Excuse me. Can I get another caipirinha from my friend Sabby Sabs? She'd like a nice Brazilian drink. Thank you. For you,
Hey.
caipirinha.
Oh.
Salud.
Hello. Oh,
Sabby.
man. Cheers. Okay, guys.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you just great.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. All right, guys. My special guests tonight are Fiorella and Pasta from the Convo Couch. Guys, welcome back.
Thank you for having us back, Sabby. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So, obviously, huge election. So I want you guys to explain to everyone, with this particular election in Brazil with Lula and Bolsonaro, why was this election so significant?
Okay. Well, this election was significant because we're talking about economics here. We're talking about an economy very similar to our own in the United States. High inflation, high poverty, high crime rates, income inequality, vast wealth disparity, racism, a lot of discriminatory policies, and of course, the decadence of a neoliberal austerity measures falling apart, along with the privatization of the entire country. And so that is what Bolsonaro represented. The problem is that Bolsonaro, very much like some of the right-wing populists in our country, presented himself as somebody that is challenging the establishment, somebody that's different, even though he's wealthy. And he, of course, was the one questioning the pandemic more. And he led with the charges against Lula da Silva, still being a corrupt politician. And as a workers candidate, I would definitely say he was more of a better version of a Bernie Sanders than anything remotely close to Joe Biden. But he's definitely has been the candidate of the people. He won twice before. I mean, he's been president before, so it's not like he doesn't have a history. And of course, he was jailed on charges of corruption that were later dropped. So it really just signifies two polar opposite sides of the political spectrum in Brazil, in an economy that's very similar to our own.
To me, the biggest thing is class. It really is. I woke up today just shaking my head and then, like, Sabby, it's the oldest trick in the book. Keep the people divided so then you can keep all the wealth to yourself, that being the ruling class. And I don't know, how they do it, but they do it and they do it effectively. When it comes to actual resources getting into the poorest of the poor, Lula has always championed that, and he has always proved that he can do that. In fact, he took them off the poverty index after 2 terms of a president. However, we're in Sao Paulo, a lot of people part of the gig economy, the working class, and they still kind of will accept the fact that Lula, in their mind, is a criminal, despite getting acquitted on all charges. And they really have this kind of disdain for poor people. When Lula did the interview with Glenn Greenwald, the thing that he pointed out to me more than anything was he said that you saw a lot of middle working class people seeing all these poor people, all these indigenous people at the airport for the first time ever, getting to experience getting on a plane and going to travel, and they were looked upon like with such disdain. Well, that still exists over here in Brazil and exists very strongly, and you can see it. But it's so nuanced to what's going on. It's like hashtag it's confusing, or hashtag it's complicated. I'm a boomer. But I mean, there's part of the petty bourgeoisie over here, the owner class, that has moved away from Bolsonaro because they see so much social unrest that they want some form of stability. So therefore, they've been backing Lula, some of them. So they're actually the owner class is kind of split. But who is really winning under Bolsonaro is these multinational corporations. They've taken away small agriculture, the indigenous people who fight for their lands, and they've given it to big corporations who are now making so much money. Brazil is a country rich in resources. It should not be poor at all. There should not be so many poor people. Fiorella had her phone stolen last night. Our other friend had his phone stolen 4 people we know on this trip got their phones stolen. So there is this sense of social unrest, and a lot of people feel if Lula doesn't get back into power, that it's just going to be chaos over here. But you have the conservatives in America who've been backing Bolsonaro mainly because of his COVID policies, because, a broken clock is wrong 2 times a day. And if you feel that way, they still politicize the whole situation. So it's just one of those situations. It's very complicated. It's very nuanced, and it's so important. It's the matchup we never got. It's the Bernie Sanders versus the Donald Trump we never got. And it's just, the results didn't surprise me last night. Fiorella thinks that Lula's still going to win. I still think there's a good chance he can win, but I think it was a win. It was a victory for Bolsonaro yesterday, getting to the second round. And I now feel that Lula is vulnerable.
So there's this article here from the BBC, and there was something I highlighted here that I thought was important. It said Brazil's Lula and Bolsonaro face runoff after surprisingly tight result. And the piece I highlighted here says, with almost all the votes counted, Lula had won 48% against Bolsonaro's 43%, a much closer result than the opinion polls had suggested. Did you expect Lula to have a larger lead than he had? I'm just curious, since both of you were there on the ground.
No.
We didn't. We knew a lot of people did, especially towards the end. People were saying, polls were saying his lead increased, Lula's lead increased. But we were really deciding on when to come here, because obviously I'm all the way in Moscow, and we really didn't want to repeat Colombia, where we came for the first round and we weren't there for the second round, because that's when shenanigans can happen. And then we did, and we were fighting with Wyatt Reed because he was like, there's going to be a second round. We're like, yeah, but in case there isn't, we can't risk it. And so he's like, a lot of our friends are going to be here the second round, hopefully. But we came the first round, and this wasn't really that surprising to us, because we've been following this race for a long time. We know that a lot of Bolsonaro supporters, like he was mentioning, are cab drivers, Uber drivers, people really voting against their own interests, because at the end of the day, they don't have more in common with Bolsonaro and Bolsonaro supporters. They have more in common with Lula supporters. The problem is, of course, there's this divisive rhetoric. Sometimes you have like the contingent on the Lula supporters that are more liberal leaning, kind of like progressive Democrats type of thing. And then you have the leftists that are actually, social movement leaders and people that consider themselves Marxists that are like, we don't think Lula is left enough at all. He's just a progressive Democrat. But we really need to get something done here because we can't put food in our fridge. We don't have enough money. The pandemic, no matter how people feel Bolsonaro handled it, ruined a lot of people's lives. There were still closures of restaurants. People lost their jobs. We spoke to families that yesterday didn't have enough to eat. And so this is something that people are still reeling. And what we've noticed is that people felt Lula, because of his previous trajectory in politics, is the one that could bring that back. But of course, the red happens with a lot of Latiners on the right was that he's a communist. He's going to turn Brazil into Venezuela and Cuba. And I'm thinking, look around, guys. There is I have never seen tent cities in Latin American countries like I do here. It's very similar to the United States, the level of poverty. And as he mentioned, a bunch of us got our phones stolen last night. There's just so much crime and poverty and just disillusionment here. It is a structure and decay, and it just shows you what maybe we could become in the United States in a few years, or maybe what we already are on our way going.
Yeah. And I'm not going to speak too much about, the reasons why a lot of the conservatives in America do support Bolsonaro. We obviously know they're due to the protocols, and I don't think, it's hidden where I stand on that. But, when I came here with an open mind and I got to speak to these groups like the MST, which is this big labor movement of peasants that started in the 1980s, and which the PT, which is Lula's party he started, has made a political alignment with before. You see that these people get all this help from Lula, where Lula will help and actually reach out to these poor people and whatnot. So I came with an open mind. And even though I feel a certain way about those protocols, hunger is the number one cause of death in the world. And I think that needs to be addressed more than anything. When you talk to the people on the street, they're like, I used to have eggs, milk, chicken in my refrigerator. Now it's empty. It's bare. And I don't know if you can necessarily blame the issues from the pandemic on Bolsonaro. I think that's unfair because it's a system. We just talked to a doctor here where big pharma, just like in America, has so much power. But the fact that he gave away all these agriculture, he took it away from the indigenous people. It was all about property rights and private rights, and he gave it to big agriculture. So you have all these multinational corporations that have come in and pretty much just raped the land dry. Like I said in my last statement, this country is rich in food and resources, and they're exporting it all, and it's all going into individual pockets. And that is something that Bolsonaro can't get away from. Despite me agreeing with him on his stance on other things, this is the major problem here. And like Fam said, there's too many people starving on the streets. I have never seen this much poverty other than the United States than I've seen in any part of South and Central America.
Do you think, what do you think is Lula's chance of winning the second round?
Right. I think Lula has a huge chance of winning the second round because I think that some of the people that didn't vote for him this time around are going to vote for him. I still think some of the people that didn't vote for Bolsonaro will go to Bolsonaro as well. I think it's going to be a close race. I don't think it's going to be oh my God, he's just going to, win it. No questions asked. And the reason I do think is because the bourgeois class, the class that owns some businesses, the class that sees itself as the middle class, still feels vulnerable to social unrest because as I just mentioned, there's so much theft, crime, like poverty. And you walk down any street here and you will see people literally on the sidewalks lined up everywhere. It is like nothing I've seen. Graffiti everywhere. It's really bad. And a lot of people just want to go back to things, and they see Bolsonaro has alienated a lot of people. He's given money to the private corporations, and it's kind of ruining that because even these people that normally used to have some sort of money and income don't have it. So they're kind of aligning with Lula. That's why Lula's vice presidential candidate was actually more of a centrist than many were accustomed to. And the media that put Lula in jail, that was completely against him for so many years, has started to be a little bit more fair towards him because they're like, okay, well, we need to get out of this because this isn't really going our way either. And we don't know like if this is going to cause all these people coming in from the streets and trying to overthrow things. I don't think Brazil's quite there yet, but I think that's what's going to cause some people to say, well, let's go see what Lula can do. He's done it before. He a lot of housing, education, healthcare. This is what he ran on, and this is what he's done before. So let's see if he can do that to calm things a little bit more.
Yeah, it's like, this is what I've seen out here too as well. Not only it just like the kind of like transparency on the plan to keep the peasant class and the working class divided, because you see that a lot of people in the working class, they despise the poor. They really do. They think it's by their choice that they're there, that they're using drugs or whatnot. But what I also see is that I see a split in the oligarchy a little bit. Like I see entities fighting each other. Like Fiorella just talked about the owner class, the petty bourgeoisie, I believe you guys call them that. They used to walk lockstep together. Now they are split. Now they are fighting because, once again, it could be some mad social unrest. So, there's always criticisms of Lula because he went to the World Economic Forum and he, took a picture with Klaus Schwab. And I think all the big players, they have to do that in one way or another because they have to get access to power. My good friend told me that. But then why are some of the banks supporting him? Why is the media now going his way? They're going that way because they understand it didn't work out under Bolsonaro. And if they continue to go this way, they're going to lose it all. So they want some form of stability. So that's why those bigger entities have kind of switched and moved it, and they're backing Lula because Lula did once do that. He brought stability. He put food on people's plates. Did I talk about the whole thing at the airport? Was that the last interview? When Glenn Greenwald gave the interview with Lula, and Lula said, he goes, I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of people, they despise that the poor were coming out of poverty. They would see people who were so poor, indigenous people of the Amazon, at the airport, getting to fly for the first time ever because that's what Lula wanted. He wanted the poorest of the poor to experience what it was like to be a human and to travel. And they would look at them with such disdain.
That's a racial thing too in Latin America, though, I have to say.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's interesting.
It's
That's
nuanced.
interesting.
It's a lot of stuff going on.
I'm curious too. How are the elections ran in Brazil? For example, do they have paper ballots? Is it similar to the way that it was in Colombia?
You want me to go
Yeah,
I'll go with this one first. Thank you. I get to go first. Listen, it's a very interesting system. I'll say right off the bat, I'd rather have it than what we have in the United States by far. But it's a DRE system. It's a national system, which is the direct recorded electronical device. In other words, you go, you check in, and then you go to a computer screen and you press buttons, and you don't get a receipt. You don't put a paper ballot in. It's hand marked. It's recorded on that machine. Now, however, like always, the Convo Couch does its homework. We went to the election officials. We talked to them. It's an open source system. So all the parties involved have the source code. I went from machine to machine to machine, Sabby, to see if there was any internet. And likewise, they told us there'd be no internet. There was no internet connected to the machines. Unlike in America, when you go to a machine, you're like, oh, this is trying to connect to my phone over here. So there is an open source system. It is efficient. I went to an opening. When I went to an opening, they were printing out the receipts showing that they had 0 votes on it. There's no air gap. It's not plugged into anything. There's no Wi-Fi. It's just plugged into electricity only. At the end, I went back to that same room with that same machine, and it then had the results. So it does seem like a fair system. However, that's up to you. Me personally, I will never endorse a direct recorded electronic machine. I want hand-marked paper ballots that we can track at all time, and we have those receipts. But everybody here in Brazil seems to be fine with the system. We don't have many people push back against it. Bolsonaro complained about it, but that was the same system he won on. And it wasn't like Donald Trump when the system was completely different this time than the second time around from the first time. So it was a little hypocritical of him, but it seems like a fair system, but not one that I would 100% fully trust. That's just my personal opinions.
Just quickly, Sabby, I just want to say immediately when you get there, they have a voter roll book and it has your picture on it. You have to present either your physical ID or your QR coded ID digitally from your cell phone. It's one of those two. Your fingerprints are more than likely in the system. You had to have registered before. You can only go vote in the place that you're registered to that's near your house. You can't just vote wherever you want. There is no vote by mail. And so you have to show your ID, and then they take your fingerprints, and then they match you again. And if for some reason you're not appearing here, they have to have another way of checking you, find you in the voter roll and say, okay, this is you, blah, blah, blah. And then the machine from your finger, it's all part of one machine. It's just 2 parts. is connected to the machine where you just put in a code. Every candidate has a code. So they voted for, I believe, 5 candidates or 6. I can't remember if it was 5 or 6. It was a governor, a state senator, and several other positions depending on the state. And then, of course, the presidency. And they all have a specific code. Lula's was 13. And so they would mark 13. So for Lula, and whoever Bolsonaro had a different numerical code. And all of that has to match. And then at the end, they print out a tally that says in each polling room how many people voted, and 65 for Lula, 75 for Bolsonaro, and so on and so forth. And he was going room to room to check in that particular voting location. So while it's all electronic, and we would like more of a paper trail, it was still open source. And like you said, you could go back and check. And I would prefer way more to our system we have in the United States. But as Pasta says, it's always good to have a paper trail. Venezuela has both. They do the electronic, and then they print the paper as well. So it's interesting for sure. But we didn't see any sort of like weirdness to it at all.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious, why do you guys think that or feel that mainstream media is trying to make it seem like Lula is like this far radical extremist on the left? You described him more so as like a progressive, like Democrat. Why do you think mainstream media is trying to fearmonger people into believing that he's like this far extreme, like leftist? And even if he was, so what? Who cares? But why do you feel they're doing that?
I think mainstream media doesn't want anything remotely close to a Lula, especially in the West, because in spite of Lula being like, comparatively to people like Daniel Ortega or Castro or Chavez, milquetoast in that comparison, he still is worker focused and is a union guy. He came up from the union. He's definitely like a hardcore, hard fighting Bernie Sanders was at one point, like, and even more so, right? And more so because he came from the worker rural class, and he's from Sao Paulo and the poor areas of Sao Paulo. He's not a guy that grew up in wealth. And so they don't want people to think that that's a possibility and that somebody campaigning on these things is feasible, even though to people in Latin America, he's a progressive Democrat. And by the way, the reason people in Latin America feel that way is because you have really strong leftist social movements here. We just spent some time talking to them. Basically, the MST is this organization of getting a land back from the intense privatization going on in Brazil. And they focus on food sovereignty, and they focus on clean eating, meaning because there's a lot of contaminants going on in the Amazon and in our food in general. They're focused on that since Bayer and Monsanto are really taking over the Amazon. And so what they do is they've had a history of decades of getting land back for people. And they do this because the privatization has increased massively in Brazil, and they organize in a way where they create a parallel structure to the government that has failed them. And this is exactly what we should be doing in the United States. And yet we're so busy focused on things that don't matter instead of organizing on class issues. They basically, I would compare them to something of more of a rural Black Panther society where they were providing food, they were providing housing, jobs, and so many things for an underclass of people that always get left behind. And I was so flabbergasted when we were listening to him. I'm like, this is what the left in the United States needs to be doing, and they do it so well.
Yep. The only thing they don't get, like kind of like the Black Panthers, is that they're anti-gun. So the gun laws that came forward, which allow the privatization of militarized groups within these states, which are pretty much, slaughtering a lot of these indigenous people, they don't agree with that. I said, well, why don't you guys take up arms and arm yourself? They laughed. They're like, we're pacifists. We're like, we don't want guns within our community. I mean, and that's okay, but it's, that's it. And also, like what Fam said, this is the thing. Lula, the reason why they're frightened of him, he's not a Marxist, but he's a compromise between a Marxist and a capitalist. You know what I'm saying? He's going to divert resources to the poor areas, whatnot. He's going to help the poorest of the poor. And that's why they hate him. We saw some of these people, these workers, They believe in real Marxism. This is why RBN's got to come to the global South with the combo couch, and we got to do this. You guys got to see this because they're economic Marxists. They don't believe in any of that campus Marxism BS. They don't buy into any of that bourgeois BS. You know what I'm saying? They're all about economics, workers' rights. They want to, organize around economic and class issues. And I think that really scares the living bejesus out of the ruling class, because if they see this type of kind of like organization, it really scares them. It's not like the United States where you say somebody, he's a communist, but he or she might be all about, the cultural BS, all the, what do they call it?
For Biden.
Yeah, the culturalist Marxism. When people call Biden a communist, it just makes me laugh. Like, are you kidding me? They don't get caught up in all that BS. They understand where they're coming from. They understand it's about class, money, resources. And I think that scares the ruling class more than anything. And like I said, Lula is not a communist, but I think he's a compromise between the capitalists and the communists, because he's going to divert those resources to the people who need them most. And that's what scares the oligarchs.
Wow. Awesome. I'm wondering too, in reference to, because I know you guys covered, or I know Pastor, you were there in Colombia as well. Do you see some type of shift happening in the global South politically? Do you feel like most of the countries that you've been to are now moving further and further, like to the left? Or do you feel like it's more so about the candidates that have run? They're going for the people, or do you feel like there's just a general shift of them moving further to the left?
Well, I think it's the real left. It's funny because we talked to a lot of the anti-imperialists that go out there. They're like, there's no left in America, but there's an American left. But it really, to tell you the truth, it's all about national sovereignty. And these countries are getting closer and closer to calling their own shots. In a lot of these countries we went to, like Colombia, there's American bases there. There's military U.S. base with U.S. troops in their country waiting there. They want more of national sovereignty. And I don't think it's necessarily a left or a right move. I think it's a populist move. I think it's a national move. It's national sovereignty. When people say nationalism is bad, I don't think it's bad in every single case, especially when the people want to have the right to their own land, their own resources, and decide their own path forward. And I think that's what it is more than anything. I think we all get caught up too much in left and right. We have to understand what are the needs of all the people out there. And I think in a lot of these other countries, there's been a lot of people who you might consider, traditionally conservative, who are going to vote for what they think is the populist decision, so that their people can eat and they can, make the best of their own resources instead of just shipping them out to everywhere. And I think that's what really scares the United States empire, is the fact is like, we have no factories in our country. We have no manufacturing anymore. We don't make anything. Everything's imported. So if we lose all those businesses, that cheap labor, those cheap resources, they're going to really lose control, and that's going to be the end of them. So I think that's what scares them more than anything. And I think most of these people, they're not voting for leftists, they're voting for national sovereignty.
I think that question can be answered if you understand that U.S. politics is largely different from the global South, because the global South has been exploited by the West and by the United States. So the problems that they see are immediately in need of resolution are basic things like having electricity, food, water, and a sort of sanitation. Meanwhile, in the United States, we're distracted because we have been given this sort of commodity and distraction to keep us completely distracted. And so we don't really see the side effects of the class warfare until recently. So many people have lived completely oblivious to everything that's happening. In the global South, people are victims of US interventionism and imperialism. So they've had to sort of face it right away. And so what we're seeing is this shift in Latin America, is, as Pasta said, them wanting to decide for themselves what kind of leaders to pick. And in some countries, it's progressive, like in Mexico, Argentina, and Colombia, where they had such, just nefarious neoliberal policies that were either drug cartel led, or it was just civil warfare for decades, like in Colombia, that they just wanted to have some relevance of going back to democracy. And I think we can see something like that in Brazil. And then in other countries, it's like they're at a point where they don't need the United States, where they speak out against the United States more and more. And we're talking about like Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba, countries that are the closest to getting socialism, but of course have suffered severely the sanctions of the United States. So there's like that red pink tide sort of situation happening, along with a multipolarity that we're seeing with China and Russia. Now there's avenues for economic development without the United States. So I think that's also playing a larger role in the context of why these countries keep electing these leaders. But also the left in the global south focuses on economics, like I said, because they've had to, whereas the left in the United States, we're focused on a lot of social issues, but that it doesn't mean that they're not important. They just have to be backed by economics. And when they're not backed by economics, you're talking about, let's say on the left, when they talk about racism in liberal circles, it's just symbolics. When they talk about racism in many of these social movements here in Brazil, like the United States, and this is why it's very similar, experienced slavery, experienced racism, discrimination. And so that's what makes it similar. But I think here they try to deal with it more in a class way. In Latin America in general, they try to deal with those racial issues and tie them to class more than what we do in the United States. And so it's kind of interesting how, the countries that have been under the boot of the empire for so long are able to see past that and say, okay, we got to get this first because otherwise we're not going to get there. And you can see that be manifested through Cuba's family code that they just voted to allow, gay couples to have children and be recognized and all of that. Communism in Latin America is a little more conservative. Socialist countries are a little more conservative than in the United States. But at the same time, is like if the people want something, they allow it. And that's what the trend that we're seeing here.
Yeah. And I ditto again when I say I'd love to bring RBN down, to these. I'd love to get a picture of Rome standing with the Sandinistas. You know what I'm saying? I would like Rome stand next to the Sandinistas. This is awesome and stuff. And I'd love to, have you guys come down with us on one of these trips. But I've always wanted to bring conservatives down there too as well, because they're so in the dark about what really goes on. They have this kind of Mike Pompeo kind of mentality about what Marxism is and stuff like that. I mean, it's all about cultural bullshit where Pompeo is just everything he dislikes is Marxism. That shirt, I don't like it. It's Marxism. But, you go to Nicaragua, you see them. They're very conservative socially. We went to Bilwi, which is on the opposite side of where Managua is with our friend over here. And we went and met these people. They are very Christian. They're very, they're very religious. They're not really found about legalizing marijuana. They don't believe in gay marriage, you know what I'm saying? Or abortion. You know what I'm saying? I made a statement and, fam is always correcting me. I'm like, you guys are like Trumpers who speak Spanish. And I'm stretching it a little bit, but if you can understand what I'm saying, they're very, very socially conservative. And this is in Bilwi, which is an autonomous zone. And people don't understand it. There's 8 regions in Nicaragua. 2 of them are autonomous. They make their own laws. They have their own judges. The federal government only comes in when there's a disaster or to help with infrastructure projects. So people in the States are so naive to what really goes on in the global South, on the left and on the right. And all we can do is go down there, expose it and show it and tell people what we see and come back and bring the goods.
Awesome. So if, let's say after the second round, let's say if Lula wins, what do you think this will mean for our country politically? What do you think this would mean?
Well, it's going to be a struggle because Bolsonaro's party is already winning seats within their Congress and whatnot. What's that? Parliament, inside their parliament. And it's going to be tough. You know what I'm saying? A president can only do so much, so whether he wins or not, I mean, at this point, if Bolsonaro wins, you might see some serious stuff, some real civil unrest take place over here. So, I mean, I don't know how much how much Lula can do, but you like the fact that he does have his eye on making sure to take care of the most, impoverished. I don't know what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Just like here in the United States, and then we have this argument, this debate, and about capitalism and globalism. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what's going on. It's I don't know what Lula's place will be when it comes to that, but it's going to be interesting. But with the Biden government, I don't even know. I am so it's very, very complicated to think what will be. I just know that if Lula does come back into power, I think you're going to see a lot more attention being paid to those favelas that we went and visited. What are they called now?
Comunidades.
That's it?
Comunidades.
The comunidades. And I think that is, like I said, at the end of the day, I don't care where you stand on protocols and the boop boop, people die from hunger more than anything in this whole planet. So that's something that needs to be addressed. And Lula, he stays on message. You know, I want every Brazilian to have a cup of coffee, 2 square meals, and a roof over their head. The other day, he goes, I don't want kids to split an egg and eat crackers. Like, enough is enough. So I think that is right now the most important thing. But I'm glad that I don't have to vote in this election whatsoever.
I think Lula will get the second round. I think it's going to be close, but I think he will. And the reason I think that is because the centrists are divided. The small business owners, business class, I would say, are divided. You have a lot of people campaigning for him, people that are hurting. You have this push to get younger people to vote, which is they're on his side generally. And I think he's going to take it. Some of the people that didn't vote for him in this first round are going to vote in the second round. I still think it'll be close. And I do think like it's not going to be easy for him because of the fact that so many Bolsonaristas are getting into parliament. And there is that, anti-Lula sentiment because he represents the underclass. And this is, I could talk for hours about this, but there's this Latin American self-hating sort of just colonial that is kind of eviscerated in the neo-colonial sense of not liking the poor, not liking the people from the peasants from the villages, the campesinos coming in and into the city and looking down on them and saying, oh, these people are ignorant, uneducated. You can see it manifested in, how people treated Evo Morales, how people treated Hugo Chavez because they were from a lower class. So that's the whole other element of that. But in general, I think what we're going to see from Lula is if he does win and becomes president of Brazil, he's going to act very much like, I would say, like a Xiomara Castro or a Gustavo Petro. He's not going to nationalize anything. He's not going to do anything crazy. He has said as much in his speeches that we've attended. He wants to work with every single country. He wants Brazil to go back out of the poverty index. He wants to keep peace. When he was asked about Ukraine, Russia, he said his only position was peace because obviously he's running a campaign. He's not going to get a position on that. And as much as there was a picture with him with Klaus Schwab, there was also a picture with him and Gaddafi and Xi Jinping. So I think he's going to be the kind of guy that works and tries to work more with Latin American countries because he has mentioned that desire to do so. And because Latin America is going into that direction where we're seeing Colombia and Venezuela reopen their borders and have flights now, that push is happening. This is historic. I think we're going to see more Latin American countries cooperating with each other. So it's not going to be that easy for the United States to just say Brazil's going to do our bidding anymore because the climate has shifted. So I think that's where we're going.
And make no mistake about it, Sabrina. I want your audience to understand this. Okay, that was a win for Bolsonaro last night. To get to the second round was a win. It was bad for Lula and it was good for Bolsonaro. Does that mean that Lula can't win and shouldn't win? I'm not saying that, no, but now I believe he's vulnerable. A lot of people thought he was going to put this out. The polls were all saying it's first round, one and done. It was one of the reasons why we said we should maybe get to the first round like we did for Colombia, thinking that Gustavo Petro can wrap it up. And he was vulnerable. But that's the thing about it is that Gustavo Petro's candidate is not the candidate that Lula has. Lula has Bolsonaro to deal with, and he's got the whole West as far as like the Trumpers and all these other people, to Steve Bannon. They're coming down.
And even some of the left supporting Bolsonaro because they think he's like challenging globalists. But he's himself. He's actually gone to the World Economic Forum himself. He's definitely not. He's a privatizer. He wants to privatize everything. If you want me to compare Trump to Bolsonaro, I firmly believe Bolsonaro is 10,000 times worse. I mean, Trump is just I just don't think Trump was a danger. I think Bolsonaro is really, really much about privatization more than I've seen in any way. And when you meet a lot of his supporters, and we haven't even released all the videos, they're very proud of what they believe and who they are. And it was kind of just a lot to see that and see the difference in class, race, and everything versus like a Lula supporter. It was very, very, very divided, more polarized than what I see here in the United States, to be honest.
Awesome. All right. So when is the second round?
October 30th.
Okay. Are you guys going to be there the whole time until then? Or are you going to go back to your respective places?
I'm coming back tomorrow, man. 11 days in Brazil, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you know what we're all about, Sabby. And I want to thank everybody because there's a lot of people I see that watch your show. They watch our show. We have a lot of crossover audience. everybody who went to the givesendgo.com/the-combo-counts-Brazil. They were awesome. I mean, this is not cheap. You know what I'm saying? We had to put this all on ourselves and do this, but we're so passionate about it. We've been waiting for this election, Bolsonaro for Lula, for like over a year for sure. We've been talking about it. We're going to go to it. And I can't thank people enough for really helping us out to do this. But for us to stay until then would just be way too expensive. So this is it for us. And I probably will not be able to make it back on the 30th. I have another engagement on the 29th, and fam is on the other side of the planet. So it's tough.
Yeah. I was kind of upset I didn't go to the Donbass, but I was happy to be here. So because all my friends ended up going when I wasn't there. So it's just kind of
referendum.
Like,
I want to go at and stuff. But maybe our team will send you to this one.
Yeah, it might happen.
You never know and stuff. But we'll see.
Awesome. All right, guys. Anything you want to plug before you head out?
Well, we did plug the givesendgo.com/the-combo-couch-Brazil. You see how I slipped it in there, and stuff like that. But I'm saying, listen, they can go to that one. They can go to the Combo Couch, the givesendgo.com support the Combo Couch. That's still up because next year it's all about Cuba. In March, it's all about Argentina. In October, and who knows what in between. They can always go to the Combo Couch at Rockfin. If they don't know, we've been demonetized now on YouTube for almost 2 years for doing this work right here, talking about elections, talking about stuff that goes down in the global South. So anyway, they can come support us. And we understand things are tight, 5, 10, 7, 2, whatever they can do, 27. Please do. We're just going to take that money and we're going to put our boots on the ground wherever they tell us to go. And we can't thank you guys out there enough. And thank you so much, Sabby, for always having us on. This is like my third or fourth time on this show. And, we've been watching your show and watching you closely as well. And we feel a bond between you and RBN. And thank you so much again for always letting us come on and get the news out from wherever we go.
Oh, thanks so much, guys. Keep up the great work.
Yeah.
You too.
Let Rome know. We're going to get a picture with Rome and the Sandinistas in Nicaragua.
I'm going to tell him. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right, guys. Awesome. So if you did not know about that election, you know now. Very, very important to cover there. I'm going to go to some of the comments, and then I do have a special video to show you guys. Actually, I'll go ahead and show you that video right now. I changed my mind. See how I did that? This Saturday, October 8th, is Hands Off Assange. I will be there along with several others. I want to give a shout out to the land of Oz. That is Oz from Beauty and the Boomer. He made this video. Here are all of your speakers. This Saturday, get ready for it. right. This Saturday, I'll be there. Obviously, I'm excited and pumped. There will also be an event in London as well that same day. And I believe there is another event happening in Australia as well. So we are going to try to live stream that event. I'm going to try. You guys want to try? I do have an external mic now that I can use with my phone and all that fun jazz. So we are going to try to live stream that and get that content to you while it happens. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, definitely pumped for that. Excited. Share that with people. If you're going to be in the DC area, come stop by, hang out with us. It is going to be what happened here? It is going to be at the DOJ. I'll show you the addresses here. U.S. Department of Justice. That's 950 Pennsylvania Avenue, Northwest, D.C. From 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. We will be there. So there's going to be great speakers, you guys. I feel honored to be among that group. I honestly asked Misty, I was like, are you sure you want me to speak? Whatevs. But yeah, so looking forward to that. I'm going to get to some of the comments here and then we will make way. All right. Glory said UNSC established an office in Haiti to maintain their occupation of the island after their unsuccessful peacekeeping mission. All members of UNSC vote to maintain that office, aka occupation. Latif, I did get pulled by customs officers on the way back from Jamaica. They thought I was trying to smuggle weed back to the US. They was too late. I smoked it, the last of it, the night before. Seeking freedom. MLK was killed exactly 1 year and 1 day to the first time he publicly condemned the Vietnam War. You guys hear that? Give him the boot. Edwin Starr sang that song. Thank you for the super chat, Roger Meadows. Hoover said MLK, not X, the most dangerous man in the U.S. Ivory, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, early 80s, war. What is it good for? They were Brits, very anti-Reagan. Thank you for that, Ivory. Clorox, nowadays liberals won't even say anything against Republican wars. This is true. Jose, one rapper who is very active with his political views against the system/government is Immortal Technique. Most of his lyrics are politically motivated. Maybe you should reach out to him for an interview. I could do that. And thank you for this as well. KRS-One is another rapper who has spoken out against the system. That's true. He would also be a great interview. Yeah. Good luck for me getting something like that. Like, I'm not a big channel. Rodrigo, J. Cole speaks out against the system. That's true. And thanks for the super chat, Rodrigo. Lula moved right. He's closer to Biden than Marx. Interesting. John says, yes, as a Brazilian, I'm definitely worried about the second run being rigged. Gamer, thanks for having Convo Couch on, Sabby. And also, Gamer, I'll be there in spirit. Give him the boot. Can't wait. I'll be there. Whoop, whoop. Brenda V, I'm so happy Sabby is going to be there. Thanks, Brenda. Peggy, Sabby, you absolutely should be a speaker. Can't wait for the live stream. Thank you, Peggy. And Casey, I can help Sabby. I'm stoked. It's just never the way I imagined me finally going to DC. Since I was a kid, I never imagined it would be a protest. I think the first time I went to DC was for a field trip. I don't know, everybody had that one like DC field trip, but that was like when I was in elementary school. So that was the first time I went there, was for that. I'll take those comments on Rockfin. Here we go. Thank you so much for the tip, Free Thinker 59. I said it all earlier in the comment section on YouTube on your last stream. Wish I could do more. I love you, Sabby. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. And thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Dave Burt. Good to see you tonight, Sabby. Thanks for bringing on Pasta and Fiorella. We got to put our heads together on housing stuff sometime. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And thank you for this tip on Rockfin, Roger Meadows. Pasta, you are a couple years younger than me, still in your 40s. We are not baby boomers. We weren't born from 1945 to 1964. We are Xers. See that, Sabby? We are so invisible, a generation that we can't even acknowledge our own existence. Roger and I have had this discussion before about how people always forget about Gen X. It's true. It's true. Everybody remembers millennials, boomers, even Gen Z, but people do forget about Gen X a lot. I don't know what that's all about, but it happens. It happens. All right, guys. That is it for tonight, guys. I'll be back tomorrow night. Should be fun. Oh, wait, there's one more. Okay, I'll take that one. And thank you for this tip, Roger Meadows. Edwin Starr, 1969 war. Was it really good for? Absolutely nothing. Thank you for that, Roger. Aha. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. War. Huh. Oh, wait, no, it's huh. What is it good for? All right, guys. Have a good night. I'll be back tomorrow night. We'll do the damn thing. Remember, I will not be here Friday. I'll be heading to DC, so I'll just have clips on Friday. And I won't be here next Monday either. I'll just have clips on Monday because I'll be coming back from DC. But I'll be here tomorrow and Thursday. All right, guys. You know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.